Our last session, we worked with two complementary movements of the definition of yoga: union and separation. The first being most commonly known to unite the mind and body through the movement pattern of the breath, of merging our awareness to our true nature, our essence of our true self, consciousness, so that drawing together. However, the other complementary movement is to separate, to then separate from the illusion of self, the misidentified ego, the story of me, mine, and I, the titles, the roles, the duties, but also, our stories, our biases, our conditioning, to separate from that and to abide in consciousness, yet still awake to the enlivenedness of our own being. Both are asking us to have this intimate relationship and to practice understanding this relationship. As the saying goes, wisdom tells me I am nothing. Love tells me I am everything. And between the two, my life flow. So yoga becomes this skill in action, held in loving awareness, to explore, to inquire, to open this dialogue into the nature of what it's like to have a human body, into the nature of what it's like to have an energy body, into the nature of mind. But ultimately, yoga becomes an inquiry into consciousness having this human experience. So through our practice of hatha yoga, we're disciplining the body, energy, and mind in this exploration of understanding our human experience. Now, Buddhism offers us a profound truth that our life will bring 10,000 arrows of joy and 10,000 arrows of sorrow. Half of life may feel light, sweet, joyous. The other half, heavy, challenging, really hard. But another truth of Buddhism teaches us is that everything changes. Nothing is permanent in this mortal coil, that joy and sorrow move like waves on the surface of the ocean. There's this rise and fall, this beginning, this middle, this end. And so in this class that we're going to do today, I want us to explore the two currents of human life, sukha and dukkha, the pleasant, the unpleasant, the ease, the difficulty, the joy, the sorrow, the comfort, the pain, the peace, the suffering, sukha and dukkha. Yoga and Buddhism both teach us we can't escape the changing currents of life, as life inevitably will bring change, loss, discomfort, uncertainty, as well as beauty, wonder, and love. But neither path asks us to turn away from it, nor simply just endure it grimly. Oh, this is my burden I have to carry and I have to suffer through it. Instead, we're invited to meet it with more presence, with wisdom, and with more compassion. So we are practicing on our mat, so we can practice this stuff in real life. So we come to our mat and put ourselves in weird pretzel poses, progressively getting the asanas more challenging, to respond rather than react, to stay open when even things feel really hard, that we learn to refine certain tools in our practice to help us, deal with this aging body, work with our energy body that sometimes we are depleted and we need to build, or we're leaking out in some way. Our mind that becomes very affected by the noise and the environments that we're in. So what we are trying to do is utilize different tools at different times of the day, our lives, seasons, etc., different postures, back bending, forward bending, twists, laterals, inversions, supine, all this kind of stuff that we do on our mat, so we can be more skillful in our real life. So Viktor Frankl quoted about stimulus and response. Between the stimulus and the response, there is space. In that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. So yoga is skill in action, held in loving awareness. What we are trying to do is put our bodies in something in which we are challenging a reaction. We all of a sudden feel this physical expression of suffering, energetic reaction to like either hold our breath or get really kind of caught up in a pattern with our breath and our energy. And then noticing the mind reacting in a very predictable way. So our yoga practice is designed to create tapas, not the stuff we eat, but the heat for positive change. What we are trying to do is put ourselves in the fire of reaction and utilize certain tools to learn how to then respond to it in a way in which we find ourselves effortlessly merging and then separating from what is. So we cultivate prana, our life force. Our life force is seen like a little flame, and we're trying to build a stronger vessel in which we can stoke this fire so bright where the warmth from that light can heal. It emanates light so we can see clearly, dissolving the impurities or the distortions on our body, our energy body, and our mind. And so that light shines so bright, we can be inspired by seeing which tool to use, what path to take. But then that heat of transformative power we use to either manifest more of what we intend for our practice, what matters to us most, really harness these virtues of a yogi, these moral and ethical kind of attributes, but then also using this to kind of burn away of old karma that doesn't serve us, old choices, old ways we react, so we can actually respond in a way that is aligned to our truth. So one way we can work with this concept, like having a toolbox. One tool is an acronym called RAIN, RAIN. So it's a very simple tool to remember, but it's also very profound in its effect. But we have to practice it. So it gives us a way to stay with ourselves even when difficulty arises, and to transform our relationship to what we are feeling in our body, energy, and mind when we face a reaction. So R is to recognize, A is to allow, I is to investigate, and is to nurture. I'm going to go through each one. So the first step is the R, to recognize what is here. Yeah. So we begin on our mat, as in our lives, to notice, what are the sensations going on? What are the emotions that are around that sensation? What are the thoughts? What are the beliefs that are arising from that? And instead of suppressing or bypassing, we simply name, ooh, that's tension. Ooh, that's stress. Ooh, that's sadness, fear, shame, tightness, anger, longing. And so what we are doing, this is satya. This is the principle of truthfulness, that we see clearly and we begin an honest dialogue to what is present. So when you get into a yoga pose and you rest your eyes at one point, you all of a sudden notice your eyes wanting to dart around the room, trying to avoid, to chase something more pleasurable. And what we're trying to notice is oh, what is that movement? What is that sensation of why I want to kind of fidget with my body or move my eyes or hold my breath? We start to acknowledge the thoughts, the emotions, the sensations, the stories that are arising. And we start this honest dialogue with ourselves. This then unfolds into the A in RAIN, to allow. To allow what we have recognized some room to breathe, to make space for the sensations and the feelings just as they are. And this is ahimsa, nonviolence. That we stop fighting with our experience and instead soften around it. So notice a lot of the time when we are in a pose and it's becoming really intense and challenging, and we all of a sudden want to move our eyes around the room, and we're like, oh, I can't do this yoga pose. Oh, I don't like this yoga pose. Oh, and we start creating this dialogue, and a lot of the time we're not even conscious of it. And so when we become aware of it and we start to recognize, we'll notice that we are constantly trying to avoid, reject, have this kind of averse reaction to like, oh, I don't. And it's like saying no, ouch, no. Can you imagine saying that to yourself for the whole hour of practice? No. It's really contracting and it's really kind of, reinforcing that pain. So instead, the A in RAIN is to allow, like you're saying, yes. That we stop fighting with what is and say, yes. Yes, you belong. Yes, I see you. Yes, you matter. Yes, I am here. I am willing. I am listening. Yes. So a lot of the time, what we fear, the monsters, that the demons, the skeletons on our closet, the things that we are constantly trying to avoid or run away from, what it's asking us is just saying, can you look at me? Can you just look at what I'm trying to say? I just need you to hear me. I'm scared. I'm hurting. This is painful, and I need you to look at me. And so what we are trying to do in our practice is cultivate so much light, darkness can't exist. It's like turning on a light switch. And all of a sudden, we can see, and it's saying, please pay attention to me. That wound, that hurt, that void feels so dark. And sometimes we're like, I can't go there. I feel like I'm going to drown. I'm going to be sucked into the void. It feels so overwhelming. I will literally turn into a duvet and never get up. But this is why we practice. We are brave yogic warriors, that we sit on that battlefield in the chaos of life and really face the true sorrow and suffering, the hardship of humanity. And we sit with it and go, okay, I see you. Let's open an honest dialogue. So this leads me into the I of RAIN, to investigate. When we gently investigate with more curiosity and kindness, we open a way for change. It's an invitation to change our relationship and to explore something greater. So ask yourself, when you react to something you don't like, can you allow it and breathe into it, create a little bit more room? Okay. What is underneath that feeling? Where do you feel it in the body? Is it in your pelvis? Is it your tummy? Is it your chest, your throat, your head, or all of the above? What texture is it? What shape? How old is it? It might be something that a little self has been holding on to. There might be a core false belief tied to that reaction, like, I'm all alone. I'm broken. I'm too much. I'm not enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not successful enough. I'm not flexible enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not dynamic enough. I'm not lovable enough, ultimately. So this is the concept of vichara, which is a searching, fearless, loving inventory of ourselves. As we go in and investigate, we need to have viveka, this yogic discernment, this keen, wise awareness to see clearly, not to judge, but to understand in this loving awareness going, wow, we've been holding this story for a long time. Wow, we've been avoiding this. Wow, yes, this is the shape. And this is that sharp prickly, that dull darkness that feels, that swarm of bees that makes me feel so anxious. And so when we bring more light to it, we ask ourselves, what does this part need me to hear, to feel, to experience? What does it need from me right now? How can I nurture it? And that brings me to the N in rain, is to nurture, to respond with compassion. This is called karuna. This is developing more empathy, warmth, and compassion to ourselves of what needs caring, what hurts, what feels lost, what feels unseen. So how we nurture is one that we are now, every time we come onto our practice, we're learning how to hold space for ourselves in a different way. As we recognize the thoughts, the emotions, the sensations, the core false beliefs, we allow and create greater amount of room for what needs to express itself, to be seen, heard, and felt, and create more breathing room around it as we investigate and inquire deeper inwards to the shape, the color, the pattern, the texture, the stories that it brings. And the way that you nurture might be putting your hand on your heart. I remember when my first husband passed away, I had to continue teaching, and it felt like my heart broke. So much so, it felt like my heart was going to fall out of my chest. And I would teach with my hand over my heart, and I would put my arm up, and I'd teach like this, and everybody would mirror me. I would be like, oh, no. Sorry, both hands. And I'd have to explain, this is how I just have to get through the next 5 minutes, because it did feel like it cracked and it was going to fall out. And I had to hold myself at times where I had to show up in life when I just didn't feel like I was able to. So I needed to nurture myself, and a hand on the heart was one way that I felt was the most nurturing thing I could do to get through the next few moments. But you might find that, a sweet smile, and we do this quite often in my practices of doing that Buddha nature mudra of smiling and bringing tenderness, a kindness, a love, a warmth to whatever is being felt. And we all have known that, when you smile, you all of a sudden open to this constellation of joy, delight, and warmth, because neurologically you get a dopamine and oxytocin hit every time you smile, even if it's a fake smile. But also, when we smile, we soften our jaw, the palate, creating space within the words that we share with ourselves and how we speak to ourselves. We open our ears to listen with more compassion. We soften our eyes to see with more curiosity and kindness, but also it opens our breath, and our breath then takes form and shape to be kinder than our normal thoughts and actions, to soothe like balm or solve the areas that need, and we direct our breath to help support us. So that might be a way of nurturing. But you might use language, as it is very powerful, that quiet whisper, when you say, yes, I see you. Yes, you belong. And you can say, I'm right here. I'm not going to abandon you again. I am going to stay here with you. I am listening and I see you and I love you. And so how we speak to ourselves, whether we imagine a wise, loving presence embracing us and saying this, or whether it's a beloved relative saying this to us, that we feel their presence, or whether it's your future self saying it to your present self, or your present self saying it to your little self and saying, I'm right here. But this is karuna, compassion, this deep truth that we are not alone in this human experience, and that we are learning to refine the tool of loving ourselves. And there is a psychologist, Louis Cozzolini, who has this attachment theory. He says, it's not survival of the fittest, it's survival of the nurtured. And even in our most vulnerable moments, what heals us is not self-reliance alone, but kindness and care, both from others as well as ourselves, that allows us to feel safe and whole. And I do know, from my story, I survived my childhood, but I fought my way through it. And I picked up a tool that I used for every problem. And every problem looked like a nail. But actually, as I grew as an adult, I realized not every problem is a nail. There's screws, there's things that need to be cut and dismantled, and I need a wrench, and I need a saw, and I need other tools. But after a while, I realized, okay, I need to put this tool down and maybe diversify my tools. So this is where we start to realize is that how we survived our past difficulty, hardship, burdens, you can even say traumas. We created skillful ways to survive, and sometimes what we picked up doesn't serve us anymore. And we can offer ourselves more loving ways in which we can now manage the unmanageability of life in a more skillful, loving way. And how we can do this is, one tool is rain. And it's not about getting through suffering. It's about cultivating qualities of mind and heart that allow us to meet life's inevitable changes with strength and grace, with tenderness and love. So when we pause to recognize and allow, we stop that inner war against what is. We taste the peace that comes not from perfect circumstances, a perfect form in asana that we look so great on Instagram, but from making peace in this moment exactly as it is. And we learn that this is hard, but we can still be at peace with ourselves even if it feels hard. So we can feel that stillness, the peace, like the eye of the storm, even if life is blowing a real shitstorm in our lives. And through investigating and nurturing, we discover even in difficulty, there are moments of tenderness, ease, connection. We realize that contentment is not conditional. It is our inner resource that we can touch even in the midst of dukkha, that storm of pain, suffering, of hardship, of the chaos, that we learn that we don't need everything to be perfect. We don't need everything to change to feel at home in our own hearts. That we practice to grow this equanimity, the capacity to remain steady and loving in the face of life's highs and lows, life's storms, or just this kind of dullness of boredom. That we learn that we can hold joy and sorrow, gain and loss, praise and blame, not with indifference, but with a grounded, loving heart. So whatever comes, we can meet it with loving presence. And on our mat and in our real life, we can return to these simple questions. What is here right now? Can I let what is be here as it is right now? What does it need from me? How can I hold it with more love? This is the heart of both yoga and mindfulness, to come home to ourselves over and over again, to meet life as it is, and to discover that in the middle of it all, we can rest in peace, embody contentment, and cultivate equanimity. This is yoga, skill and action held in loving awareness. This is the idea of how we can practice merging and then separating and holding both as we abide in consciousness, yet feel that enlivenness of our own being. But it takes practice. This is why we have the ritual of returning back on our mat over and over again to create this refinement of the tools that we use, and remember the path that leads us back home to our true self. And the practice of rain is one of those tools, to recognize, to allow, to investigate, to nurture, and to remember, our true refuge is here, not out here. And so we find this ritual of returning back and realizing our serenity, our peace, our contentment, that harmony we seek is a remission on a daily basis, contingent upon our devotion to practice. Practicing yoga to experience a state of oneness, wholeness, completeness, to awaken to our true self, to remember that what we are is joyous, loving, and deeply free. So I welcome you to practice.